friends, welcome back. Today I am going to discuss about some more models or theories of recent trends in leadership. In the previous discussion I talked about leader member exchange theory of leadership. Today I am going to discuss about transformational, transactional leadership style and charismatic leadership style. When I am talking about transformational and transactional leadership styles, these are the styles which majorly focuses on the characteristics of leaders. Till now we have discussed that which model or which theoretical assumption about leadership will be applicable in which kind of situation. But we also have to understand that it is very important to identify the characteristics which are very much needed to transform the traditional ways of being led to meet the challenges of the dramatic changes. Dramatic changes here means to meet the global challenges, to meet the marketplace challenges. Based on this assumption, to identify the characteristics or traits of any leader or traits which are applicable to any particular situation, Burns have identified two types of leadership: transformational and transactional leadership style. If we talk about transactional leadership style, it basically talks about those characteristics of a leader who focus on exchange of tangible rewards for the work and the loyalty of followers. It is completely based on exchange policy or exchanging of rewards, how much input you give and how much output does the organization receive as a consequence of the task, and in return the follower will get some rewards in form of tangible rewards, in form of monetary benefit, it can be in form of recognition. Also that performance can be measured by the leader based on the amount of work that has been performed by the follower. This is the criteria for transactional leadership style, which assumes that a leader who will completely focus on doing the work or focusing on the work done by the followers and how much work has been done, based on that rewards will be fixed. Whereas transformational leaders are the one who engage with the followers on higher order intrinsic needs. It is beyond transaction, it is beyond rewarding the employees. The transformational leader basically focus on the higher order intrinsic needs in terms of that what is the significance of performing a particular task, in terms of significance, in terms of meaning of the task, and to what extent the task which will be performed by the follower has some major impact on the organizational consequences or outcomes or on the follower itself. So, when we talk about transformational leaders, it raises some consciousness about the significance of specific outcomes and new ways in which those outcomes might be achieved. So, it also talks about the intrinsic desires of an individual, higher order intrinsic needs, that to what extent it enhances the knowledge of the follower, it enhances not only the outcomes, but to what extent that task that has to be performed by the follower is meaningful not to organization, but to the individual follower as well. These are the two basic trait assumptions of transformational and transactional leadership style. Therefore, a transactional leadership, if we go into detail, follows a managerial philosophy of reinforcement and exchanges. How much input the follower gives to the task, how much is the outcome, based on that the reward will be fixed, or the more you produce or manufacture any particular product, the more will be the reinforcement. It can be a fixed interval that any assembly line worker can produces 100 units in 2 hours or 1 hour, then accordingly reinforcement or monetary benefit will be given to the assembly line worker. This also entails that employees establish specific goals and then offer reward for achieving them. There are targets, there are deadlines, that how much work has to be completed in specific period of time. This is the transaction where effective transactional leaders recognize and reward a follower's accomplishments in a timely way. So, this is transactional leadership, which is actually based on transaction or the exchange of input and output. That is, leaders exchange model with rewards being given for good work or positive outcomes. Further, transactional leaders are generally split into 3 dimensions. Now, even the trait of a leader is transactional, but they also exhibit those transactional traits in different forms. It is not that they are just imposing any order on the employees or the followers and they have to perform the job. Even that transactional style is being exhibited by the leader in different situations and forms. So, the first 3 dimensions are contingent reward or contingent positive reinforcement, that is to give rewards when the set goals are accomplished on time, ahead of time, to keep subordinates working at a good pace at different times throughout completion. It can be in form of reinforcement, for example, that employee who are working for a complete 8 hours per day, they will get a particular amount of money. It can be their daily wages. If they extend, then again they will get some more extended wages or increased wages based on the extra time they have given to the task, or it can be a transaction in form of that how much unit our assembly line worker will manufacture in 1 hour. So, that proportion is been calculated by the transactional leader and the award is being defined. The other is management by exception, which is based on active role. The leader continuously monitors each subordinate's performance and takes immediate corrective action when something goes wrong. This is another way to exhibit the transactional trait by the leader, that there is a strict observation, staunch observation on the employee's performance, and wherever error is there, that has been rectified by the leader with this idea that the organization should not suffer any loss at any point of time. This is management by exception active. Observation is there, monitoring is there of the performance, that what is the quality of the performance, and if a performance is going down, then how it can be controlled. And the other is management by exception, that is passive. Leaders do not monitor employee performance and wait for serious issues to come up before taking any corrective actions. They do not monitor, but they are completely based on the outcome, that whatever is the outcome based on the problems that employees face, accordingly the action or decision will be taken, and finally the call will be taken that how much product has been manufactured and what is the quality of performance or level of performance of the employees. So, according to transactional leadership styles, 3 dimensions are under major emphasis. The first is contingent reward or contingent positive reinforcement, management by exception active, and management by exception passive. Next is the concept of transformational leadership. As I mentioned earlier, that it raises consciousness about higher intrinsic needs, that what is the need of the task to be performed, what is the significance and what is the meaningfulness of that job that has to be performed by the follower. This was initially introduced by Downton, the first to coin the term transformational leadership, and the concept was further developed by James McGregor Burns. So, according to this theory of leadership, where the leader works with the team of followers beyond their immediate self-interest to identify needed changes, create a vision to guide the change through influence, inspiration, and executing the change in tandem with committed members of a group. It is not only about realizing the higher order needs of the followers, but a transformational leader also engages with the performance of the employees, help them, support them, inspire them and influence them for better performance. There is more approachability between the leader and the follower, and ultimately from time to time, on different time to time, the leader also intervenes to enhance the performance and productivity of the organization. So, this leadership is interactive and inspiring. As I mentioned, that interactive here means that the transformational leader is approachable. Any follower can easily approach and are able to inspire followers to change expectations, perceptions and motivation to work towards common goals. So, there is more flexibility, there is more interaction among the leader and the follower, and ultimately the goal of a transformational leader is not only to achieve the common goal in terms of amount of productivity that can be quantified, but not only quantify or effectiveness of the performance, but at the same time maintaining relationships with the followers and the leader. This is the significance of transformational leadership style, where intrinsic high order needs are being raised, or it is being the followers become aware of the intrinsic higher order needs, how they can relate with their task, how they are contributing to the organization, and to what extent the task is meaningful to the organization. It should not be that only a transactional leader can just focus on give and take philosophy. It is beyond that. So, based on this philosophy of transformational leadership style, Burns have identified 4 components of transformational leadership. The first is intellectual stimulation, encouraging new experience and ways of thinking for themselves and employees. It is not only that the leader is imposing the idea, the employees are also encouraged to come up with some innovation and creativity, and with exchange of ideas there is more intellectual stimulation. So, this is one of the most major feature of transformational leadership style. The other is individual consideration, mentoring employees and supporting their professional development. Like that in transactional leadership style, observation is there and then correcting or rectifying all the errors, whereas in transformational leadership style, consideration is there not only based on the performance or on the productivity or the outcome, but the transformational leader also mentors the followers that how they can conduct themselves at the workplace, or more importantly with what ease any employee can perform the task in a very affluent manner. The other is inspirational motivation, imparting a vision for an organization that employees internalize and make their own. Not only claiming that this is my idea. No, it is about inspiring the other followers that it is not only a leader's idea or vision, but it is a vision of the whole group or the organization. There is more acceptability, there is more attachment to that vision, not only of the leader, but of the followers. This maintains high level of inspirational motivation between the leader and the follower. They internalize the goals, they internalize the values that the organization is ours, not only of the leader. And the other is idealized influence, serving the role models for how they expect employees to conduct themselves. The more the leader, a transformational leader, is inspiring, is mentoring the employees, the more followers are influenced by a transformational leader and learn all the ropes that how to perform the job, and more importantly how to conduct themselves at work. So, these 4 I's by the Brown has been identified, which also entails that these are the components of transformational leadership: the intellectual stimulation, individual consideration, inspirational motivation, and idealized influence. Thus, transactional versus transformational leadership is not a question of a good or bad or right or wrong. They are opposite to each other, but both the styles are advantages and an important style of leadership based on the type of situation or based on the type of group members or followers. As per the situation, a leader can change his leadership style so that maximum input can be invested or received and output can be received. So, a leader may naturally gravitate towards either the transactional or transformational side in the style and methods. However, the best leaders understand that both can be utilized and integrated into the overall leadership toolkit. So, these 2 styles has been considered as a package, as a toolkit for a leader from where to fit in with style, so that maximum outcome can be achieved. The next is charismatic leadership, but the question is that what is charisma? It is influence, and how that influence impacts the followers. There are number of leaders who exist in different organizations, but there are certain leaders, handful of leaders we can say, that who have a very dramatic influence on the on the followers. People follow them blindly with their demeanor, with their enthusiasm, with their charm, and ultimately they gain so much of acceptance and they are also inspiration for the followers. So, charisma is a form of interpersonal attraction that inspires support and acceptance. Support for the followers and acceptance by the leader. A charismatic leader is being accepted and the followers get lot of support. So, it is an interpersonal attraction between a leader and the follower. We will never think about interpersonal attraction to this level. We have already discussed these aspects in social psychology. What is interpersonal attraction and how it starts from acquaintance to liking, disliking and a total continuum. But when we are talking about charismatic leadership, then there is also some sense of interpersonal attraction between the leader and the follower. How many leaders are there where there is that followers are attracted towards that leader? This is charisma. So, it is an influence or an attitude of enthusiasm and optimism that is contagious, or an aura of leadership, that when a leader is addressing the group of followers, the followers are just enchanted, they are gripped by what the leader speaks. This is charisma, that they blindly follow. For example, if I take up the example of any Bollywood actor or actress, they have a charisma, they have an aura. Whenever they are on the screen, they show some presence and people tend to follow. This is charisma. But when it comes to leadership style, as a charismatic leadership style, then it has support, it has acceptance, it exudes lot of optimism, it exudes lot of enthusiasm, that the followers tend to actually copy those leadership, they try to imitate the leader. So, charismatic leadership is accordingly a type of influence based on the leader's personal charisma, all else being equal. Maybe all leaders have equal traits and qualities or characteristics, but some leaders have such an influence that maybe other leaders do not have that influence, but some leaders are so much enthusiastic, inspirational and they have an aura that people are profoundly influenced by those leaders. This is charismatic leadership style. Robert House was the first person to coin this term or theory of charismatic leadership based on research findings from a variety of social science disciplines. He has researched on different kind of traits which heavily influence the followers and how they blindly tend to follow those leaders, because they tend to have such a profound influence on the followers. This theory suggests that charismatic leaders are likely to have a lot of confidence, self-confidence on not only on themselves, but on their beliefs and ideas, and the influence is so strong that the communication between the charismatic leader and the follower has high expectations about follower performance and express confidence in their followers. They exude that confidence and it has been transmitted to the followers. There is so much of positivity, there is so much of profoundness, there is so much of influence and impact that members or followers tend to imbibe that kind of optimism from that leader. At this moment, we can recollect the name of any charismatic leader we know. For example, John F. Kennedy or any other leader, be it not only political leader, it can be an entrepreneur who have a very massive influence on the followers. Thus, charismatic leader is characterized by three fundamental attributes. Why we say that this is charisma? They exhibit some elements, there is some disposition in a way that they identify certain behaviors in a very strong manner. So, these attributes are envisioning, energizing and enabling. When these attributes are being exhibited by any leader, we can easily find that they are influencing a large number of people in organizations. So, these characteristics are envisioning, energizing and enabling. So, if any leader who is attributed as envisioning, this connotes to articulating a compelling vision, setting high expectations and modeling consistent behaviors. They are very stable, they are approachable, and ultimately they have high levels of expectations not only for themselves, but they have expectations from the followers, and the way they communicate their vision to the followers, that is more inspiring and motivational. So, this envisioning attribute is something that they tend to exude or they tend to dispose in their behavioral patterns. The other is energizing, demonstrating personal excitement, expressing personal confidence, seeking, finding and using success. Now, here demonstrating personal excitement is that the person, the leader, the charismatic leader is enthusiastic, he is more ready than the followers to start the process or take up the initiative for any project or take up the action more than with lot of eagerness and curiosity. There is more confidence in the belief that we can do it. There is lot of connectivity between the leader and the task that has to be taken up, and as soon as the task is successful, the leader himself takes the initiative to use that success for further enhancement in the performance of the employees. So, this is the energizing attribute of any charismatic leader. The other is enabling, expressing personal support, empathizing. This is very important, being a charismatic leader, that the person who is charismatic in nature has or maintain a personal relation or contact with every follower. The leader empathizes that what the follower feels in every sense, and the leader is supporting those feelings of the follower. And expressing confidence in people, it is not only confidence, but lot of trust that any charismatic leader can have on his followers, so that there is connectivity, there is personal touch, and ultimately the members are inspired to work more. So, these are the three attributes which have been exhibited by any leader. Can be stated that a leader is charismatic based on envisioning, enabling and energizing. Social scientists have just identified some characteristics of charismatic leader, that the followers trust the correctness of the leader's belief. Now, here in all the characteristics we can easily find out a very drastic change in the characteristics, that here we are not talking about the leader, we are talking about the follower, how the followers perceive the leader as a charismatic leader. So, the followers trust the correctness of the leader's belief, even the followers have full confidence on the leader. The followers' beliefs are similar to the leader's belief. There is commonality in what they think and do between the leader and the follower. They think on the same lines, they have similar beliefs and value system. The followers accept the leader unquestioningly. If the leader is very successful and have lot of enthusiasm and attraction, then the follower in a very unquestioning manner, they will follow the leader in a very blind fashion. The followers feel affection for the leader. It is not only that the leader will empathize, the followers also empathize or are emotionally connected with the follower. The followers obey the leader willingly. The followers have an emotional involvement in the organization's mission. Since followers have lot of affection for the follower and vice versa, then that affection is also being transmitted or connected to the organizational goals. The followers have heightened performance goals. The followers believe they can contribute to the success of the group's mission. So, when lot of optimism is being transmitted to the followers through charismatic leader, then ultimately these characteristics, when possessed by any leader, can be perceived as a charismatic leader. So, these are certain characteristics. There can be beyond these characteristics also, but we can envision, we can perceive in our imagination that what a charismatic leader is. Next comes some of the examples where we say that these are charismatic leaders. For example, Condoleezza Rice, he was spokesperson in American Senate. Then Mary Kay Ash, a highly successful entrepreneur. Steve Jobs, as we already know the name. Ted Turner, Martin Luther, Pope John Paul II. We can have a long list of charismatic leaders, but definitely these leaders have some trait within themselves which mark them different from other leaders. They are at par, they have a different sense of understanding followers and how they tend to relate those with those followers along with motivation, influence, inspiration and emotional. But at the same time, charisma can also be taken forward in any other direction as well. For example, Adolf Hitler, he was a very different kind of leader, and maybe we can say that we cannot imagine that any charismatic leader can be like that of Adolf Hitler, but there can be some leaders who can possess these qualities and these qualities are perceived as charismatic. So, this is what it is mentioned that however, charisma can also empower leaders in other directions. We never know that how any person is perceiving the charisma of the one leader and imbibe those qualities in a very different direction, such as Adolf Hitler had strong charismatic qualities that can appeal to some followers as well. So, one has to control his emotions to not get carried away by any influential or charismatic leader and take those traits in a very different direction. At the same time, when we are talking about charismatic leaders, it can also have some, to certain extent, some negative impact also, while understanding that whenever a charismatic leader is imposed or is perceived, any leader is perceived as charismatic, then it can also lead to some troubles. For example, when followers tend to, when the employees tend to follow charismatic leaders, then the charismatic leader can also influence the followers in a very negative manner, and because followers have blind faith that they can engage themselves in any kind of inappropriate behavior or practice. That inappropriateness can be in form of being unethical or even engaging in some kind of illegal behaviors because the leader instructed them to do so. So, that blind faith should never exist to such an extent that even the followers are being influenced, they fail to decide the correctness of the decision making of any charismatic leader. So, this is something that one perceive and how that perception can be used in a positive direction, not in terms of just leading or following the leader, but it can also be in form of modifying our own behavior, that of the followers, and reach the common goal. This is the picture of John F. Kennedy, which is arguably the most charismatic president of the United States and came from a powerful family and was blessed with good looks in addition to this personal charisma. So, this is an added on qualities of a leader, that how people get carried away by the vision, by the mission of a leader in a blindly fashion. This is, there can be list of n number of list that how people tend to get influenced by any leader to any extent. This is charisma, right. So, this is about another recent trend about leadership style, that is transformational, transactional and charismatic leadership style. That is all for this lecture. Thank you so much.